kiddos. So I got cut off because my phone rang, and I'm sorry. But remember, we were talking about how, you know, Sam and Miss Catherine kissed, and this little old lady, Hattie Parker, says God will punish you. What I want you to understand is that 110 years ago, when the authors, remember this, and really, kiddos, this book is 22 years old, okay? So really, this is like 130 years ago, okay? We talked about this in the last video, but there was still segregation. People believed that African Americans and those who were white were not equal, and we know that was wrong. We know that that is not the way that it works, and it doesn't matter your skin tone, where you come from, what language you speak, if you're a boy, if you're a girl. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from or what color your skin is. Everyone should be treated equally. What matters is what's on the inside and how you are as a person. But that's not what they believed back then. And so back then, it was actually illegal, kiddos, for those who were African American and those who were white to be in a relationship together. It was illegal. Can you believe that? It was against the law. How crazy is that? Okay? And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you today about injustice. Okay? And so already we're kind of seeing some injustices on this part. Okay? I'm not going to say them for you because I want you to really think about it. But we know that this was wrong. And so by the author putting this in here, it's not what the author believes. The author wants us as readers to understand that this was wrong and that this was unjust. Okay, that Sam and Miss Catherine were facing injustice. Does that make sense, kiddos? Okay, we're going to go into one more chapter, okay? Chapter 26, I'm on page 112. Okay, stay with me, okay? There were no telephones, but word spread quickly through the small town. By the end of the day, everyone in Green Lake had heard that the school teacher had kissed the onion picker. Not one child showed up for school the next morning. Miss Catherine sat alone in the classroom and wondered if she'd lost track of the day of the week. Perhaps it was Saturday. It wouldn't have surprised her. Her brain and heart had been spinning ever since Sam kissed her. She heard a noise outside the door, then suddenly a mob of men and women came storming into the school building. They were led by Trout Walker. "There she is," Trout shouted, "the devil woman." So I want you kiddos to understand that they had all loved Miss Catherine. Remember in the beginning of what we read today in chapter 23, they were talking about how much they loved Miss Catherine. Everyone loved her. And because she loved a man who had a different color skin than her, they called her Devil Woman. And I want you to think about how that fits into our theme, okay? The mob was turning over desks and ripping down bulletin boards. "She's been poisoning your child's brains with books," Trout declared. They began piling all the books in the center of the room. "Think about what you were doing," cried Miss Catherine. Someone made a grab for her, tearing her dress, but she managed to get out of the building. She ran to the sheriff's office. The sheriff had his feet up on the desk and was drinking from a bottle of whiskey. "Morning, Miss Catherine," he said. "They're destroying the schoolhouse," she said, gasping for breath. "They'll burn it to the ground if someone doesn't stop them." "Just calm your pretty self down for a second," the sheriff said in a slow drawl, "and tell me what you're talking about." He got up from his desk and walked over to her. "Trout Walker has—" "Now don't go saying anything bad about Charles Walker," said the sheriff. So I want you to think how Miss Catherine is being treated differently here. First of all, he says, "Calm your pretty little self down," as if because she's a woman, she doesn't need to be outraged. And then she starts talking about how Charles Walker, is doing something wrong. And remember, we learned that Trout Walker was the richest man in town, right? His family owned the whole town. And so the sheriff is saying, don't say anything bad about him. And so they're being treated differently because of, remember, it's one of the things we talked about, gender. And I should have put wealth up here too, how much money you have. That can be something that causes you to be treated differently, okay? "We don't have much time," urged Catherine. "You've got to stop them." "You're sure pretty," said the sheriff. Miss Catherine stared at him in horror. "Kiss me," said the sheriff. She slapped him across the face. He laughed. "You kissed the onion picker, why won't you kiss me? She tried to slap him again, but he caught her by the hand. She tried to wriggle free. You're drunk, she yelled. I always get drunk before a hanging. A hanging? Who? It was against the law for that man to kiss a white woman. Well, then you'll have to hang me too, said Catherine, because I kissed him back. It ain't against the law for you to kiss him, the sheriff explained. Just for him to kiss you. We're all equal under the eyes of God, she declared. The sheriff laughed. Then if Sam and I are equal, why won't you kiss me? He laughed. I'll make you a deal. One sweet kiss and I won't hang your boyfriend. I'll just run him out of town. Miss Catherine jerked her hand free. As she hurried to the door, she heard the sheriff say, the law will punish Sam, and God will punish you. She stepped back into the street and saw smoke rising from the schoolhouse. She ran down to the lakefront where Sam was hitching Mary Lou to the onion cart. Thank God I found you, she said, hugging him. We've got to get out of here, now. What? Someone must have seen us kissing yesterday, she said. They set fire to the schoolhouse. The sheriff said he's going to hang you. Sam hesitated for a moment, as if he couldn't quite believe it. He didn't want to believe it. Come on, Mary Lou. We have to leave Mary Lou behind, said Catherine. Sam stared at her a moment. There were tears in his eyes. Ooh, this part of the book always makes me cry. Okay. Sam's boat was in the water, tied to a tree by a long rope. He untied it, and they waded through the water and climbed aboard. His powerful arms rowed them away from the shore. But his powerful arms were no match for Trout Walker's motorized boat. They were little more than halfway across the lake when Miss Catherine heard the loud roar of the engine. Then she saw the ugly black smoke. These are the facts. The Walker boat smashed into Sam's boat. Sam was shot and killed in the water. Catherine Barlow was rescued against her wishes. When they returned to shore, she saw Mary Lou's body lying on the ground. The donkey had been shot in the head. That all happened 110 years ago. Since then, not one drop of rain had fallen on Green Lake. You make the decision. Whom did God punish? Okay, kiddos. So this is a heavy chapter, right? And that's why this is the topic that we're discussing. And the author is pointing out that the way that Sam was treated, the way Miss Catherine was treated, what they did to Mary Lou was unjust, right? It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. It was very, very, very wrong. And so ever since then, remember, it was a beautiful green lake. Remember in chapter 24, 23, they describe it as a beautiful green lake, heaven on earth. And since then, not one drop of rain had fallen on the lake. And the author says, who did God punish? Meaning, everyone was saying that Miss Catherine was going to be punished, right? Because she fell in love with someone who didn't share the same color skin as her. But when this town did what they did, burned down the schoolhouse, killed Sam, all because he was a different color, the lake turned into a desert. And they're saying, who is God punishing? And he's punishing the people who did those things to Sam because it was unjust, right? So we're almost done. There's like one paragraph left, okay? So stay with me. 3 days after Sam's death, Miss Catherine shot the sheriff while he was sitting in his chair drinking a cup of coffee. Then she carefully applied a fresh coat of red lipstick and gave him the kiss he had asked for. For the next 20 years, Kissin' Kate Barlow was one of the most feared outlaws in the West. So, all of our stories are starting to collide, right? We've heard this story of Stanley's great-great-grandfather being robbed by Kissin' Kate Barlow. We were hearing the story of Miss Catherine Barlow, the school teacher, and Sam, the onion picker. And all of a sudden, they're starting to mesh. And we're seeing that Miss Catherine, who was the sweet school teacher, because of everything that happened to her in her life, she became Kissin' Kate Barlow. Okay, and so the tube that Stanley found, Kissin' Kate Barlow, KB, Catherine Barlow, right? So everything's starting to collide. Now, kiddos, one thing I really want you to take away from this chapter. Y'all, this book is an award-winning book. and it is an award-winning book for this topic right here. Okay, it won the award for the way that this author teaches us about how people of different color, of different gender, different backgrounds, how they were treated and how it was unjust. It was unfair, okay? And so in the next video that you're going to watch, it's the graphic organizer that you have to do today, and it shows me talking about how Miss Catherine faced injustice. Please watch it, okay? It's on the next slide. Please, please, please watch it. And then I'm going to ask you to tell me how Sam, Stanley, and Zero have all faced injustice. Now, this chapter focused more on Sam, right? But I want you to think everything you know about Stanley and Zero so far, and what do you think has happened in their life that may be unfair? Okay, Stanley certainly has had some unfair circumstances. We've learned a lot more about Zero and makes us think that maybe his life hasn't always been fair. So I want you to tell me, what are some ways that they faced injustice? If you have questions about what we covered today in our book, or you want to talk about it, please let me know. Okay, this is one of the reasons I wish we were in class for this book, but I do feel like it's a really important topic to cover, because not only do we need to know how wrong it is, I think it's great to see how far we have come in treating people equally and understanding that everybody deserves kindness. Okay, that's a lesson you can take away from this. Everyone deserves kindness, no matter if they're rich or poor or black or white. It doesn't matter. Everyone deserves to be treated equally and with respect. Okay? I love you, kiddos. Let me know if you have questions, and I will see you guys later.